First headliner of the morning, as Joe kept alluding to, JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon is here. There's about 100 things we want to talk to you about, and it's nice to see you, sir.
Great to be here again.
But I'll tell you where I want to start, because I see that you have the Ukrainian flag there on your lapel, and you spent some time with President Zelenskyy yesterday.
I did.
Tell us about that meeting.
You know, he came and met with a bunch of business. First of all, thrilled to be here, all of you and around the world. You know, he came and met with a bunch of business leaders and people who can help think about refinancing the redevelopment of Ukraine after this terrible war is ended. So they're starting to think ahead. So a lot of people, how do you set up structures and stuff like that. But you know, my heart goes out to the guy. I mean, people forget that every day he wakes up in the morning, there's a 600-mile front. There's 1 million soldiers fighting off, Russians. They've had 300,000 casualties so far. This may go on for longer. We have to help them. We have to teach the American public that this is about freedom and democracy for the free world, and that's where the battle is being fought. And so I hope our government gets together and finally passes these new bills, et cetera. So I just want to show my support for Ukraine.
Do you think that's a message that is going to get broad support back in the United States? Because clearly there is a huge polarized split on this. In fact, when I talked to Zelenskyy later in the day, we talked about the prospect of former President Trump becoming the president again and what that would mean for the support or actually lack of support for Ukraine in the future.
I think American leadership has to explain to the American public why it's important, has to remind them of what happened in 1917, has to remind them what happened in 1941. And so while, America, we have to protect America, this is America first. This is the battle zone of democracy and freedom and free enterprises affecting all other relations in the world. A Russian victory could cause huge problems that might, I may write an op-ed on how the West lost. And, in looking back from 2050, is did we keep together the alliances, the democracies? We have to put trade back on the table. That's how important this is.
What do you
What
do you say to the politicians back in the U.S. and even politicians in other countries around the world who say, look, we have our own problems back home. We've got immigration issues, other things that cost money. We have other crises that we have to contend with that we have to pay for, whether it be what's happening in Gaza or other places around the world. And where do you, in this sort of stack prioritization, do you put Ukraine?
Very high up. I think Ukraine is about whether the world is free and maybe about whether the world is free and safe for democracy for 100 years. We are screwing up tons of other things, including immigration, but life isn't either or. So, you can't say, well, we'll do this and do that. You're dealt the hand you're dealt, and you got to deal with it. And so we should be very clear about helping the lower income population. No country, every country's got to control the borders, and we have to control the borders. And so, so they're all important.
Would you take the deal that the Republicans have put on the table, though, which is we want this border immigration policy as we've laid out, and then we'll fund the rest? Would you rather take that than neither?
I have not read that deal in total, but I probably would take it. Yeah. We have to control the borders. Yeah. We need more merit-based immigration. We need more seasonal immigration. We need more. We need DACA have a place here. We need a path to citizenship. If you do not control the borders, you are going to destroy our country. And so I think the people who think that somehow this is okay, so now they're sending the migrants into New York and stuff like that. So all of my super liberal friends, now they realize what a problem is. Did it have to be that? That we realize it. So we want to have a big heart for the world, but we have to control the borders.
Jamie, do you view Putin's intentions as beyond Ukraine? I mean, there are some people that think that he wants the great Russia. He feels like it's been, I don't want to say castrated, but it's certainly not the Soviet Union anymore, Mother Russia. So he wants to bring some of that back. You don't think that there's certain parts that he would stop? You think Poland's next? You think that there are larger intentions that are going to come? Because that almost a domino there, because we've had those.
Yeah, I would defer a little bit to people like Condi Rice and Bob Gates and all these folks who are experts. He clearly has designs in a bigger, broader Russia, stuff like that. And, we don't exactly know if he wins something there, what he's going to do next. Why take a chance?
Right.
I'm not looking at it. You have to know the answer. We do know if we don't take a chance, we're better off than we do take a chance. So, and it's not, and this is also, remember, this is also about Iran, North Korea. I think it's about how China positions itself over time.
Well, that's where I was going to go next, because we talked to Tony Blinken just yesterday about China and the relationship that the U.S. has with China and the prospect of them effectively taking over Taiwan in the next, call it, several years. What do you think the prospect of that is, and how do you think that multinational businesses are supposed to react or think about that risk?
Yeah, so we met with the Chinese premier yesterday, and look, I'm going to defer to Tony Blinken. The chance of a Taiwan war in the next 5 years, everyone says, is rather low for a whole bunch of different reasons. China may one day have to take sides. They haven't done that. That we shouldn't force them to, because we can't tell other nations that how they should behave or how they should act. But I would look at China holistically. The Western alliance, democracy, should stay together, keep it free, but we have to do trade, diplomacy, development, finance. Like, we are not all over Africa and Latin America like we should be. Now, Tony Blinken actually set up a meeting with Janet Yellen and a bunch of big financial companies about how to help generate more development finance with the World Bank. But here you need private capital. Private capital dwarfs what these multinational institutions can do. So it's a holistic view. There is no simple way to deal with China and the rest of this world. But if we do it holistically, you guys heard me, we have the better hand. We have food, water, energy, the most prosperous nation the world's ever seen.
How challenged do you think the Chinese economy is right now? And that's one of the reasons, and we heard last year, actually, from the president of Taiwan, one of the reasons she thinks that actually China won't try to take the country is because they have to deal with their own challenges at home.
I think there's some truth to that, but I think it's good they're here. I think they're trying to make sure that they're open for business, that they're being fair to foreign companies. You saw that foreign direct investment for the first time kind of ever, I think, since WTO was negative this year. And direct investment is down, and so they need to invigorate their own economy for their own citizens, their own growth, their own people, and that may very well play into their geopolitical view.
But the message is that they're open for business now. I think people who have gotten burned in the past may be a little reticent before they're willing to invest more into it.
They have, so take financial services, they've been very consistent in opening up. Took a long time, so we have full license there now. But I think, anyone who's looking at investing there has to be a little worried. So, the risk reward has changed dramatically. And of course, it's a company like JPMorgan. I always say when it comes to foreign policy, Blinken decides and the president. I salute. I'm an American patriot, but they want us there. They're not asking American companies to leave. And being a premier bank in China helps us educate the government. It helps us educate the world about China. We bank, I'm going to say, 1,000 multinationals in China. So we obviously got to be very careful, and the laws have changed, and we have to change with the laws, both in China and America, and we're actively doing that.